Hello, it's Clayton. I just finished watching episode 13 of Young Justice Phantoms. This episode concludes the big child arc, as I've begun to call it, and it's basically the end of the first half of Young Justice Phantoms. A season that's been rather scattered throughout, especially considering that throughout the arcs where we followed Superboy and Miss Martian, Artemis and Cheshire, and now with Zatanna and her students, it does feel like the season has been pretty all over the place, but this is still a pretty solid finale. A mid-season finale as we wait for part 2. Let's get to the story, shall we? With Child running amok, our heroes have absolutely no choice but to work alongside Klarion while he's still in the bus, as they help him find a new familiar and decide to take down Child once and for all. All while the Stranger and Vandal Savage happen to indirectly help in their own way by getting Child out of the favor of the Chaos Lords. However, after the battle, Zatanna has a little bit of constructive criticism to give to Mary, who decided to drain the power of her teammates and the surrounding animals to amplify her own power. She's simply too dangerous and too obsessed with power to be trusted with Nabu's helmet, because Zatanna's whole plan is to use the helmet to allow her to see her father again, so she, Khalid, and Tracy would be able to use it. So yeah, Mary happens to run off, and Granny Goodness is right there to pick her up to probably make her a new antagonist for the second part of the season. Considering that Mary is the one who's the most obviously obsessed with power out of the trio of proteges that Zatanna had, I figured she was the most likely to end up in this situation. But yeah, considering that she was able to pass her test to earn Dr. Fate's trust, it's a little strange that she ended up making this kind of critical blunder, even if it was in a life or death situation. Tracy thankfully managed to destroy Flaw, which destroyed Child's familiar, but for a second I actually thought Mary was going to go too far and end up killing one of the proteges. And I guess Zatanna figured I can't wait until that happens before I kick her out, so I'll just kick her out now in the nicest way I can. But of course, even doing it in a nice way is too much for Mary to handle. And I do think this plan that Zatanna had to get proteges so she could see her father again was a decent way to go about it, considering that Nabu always needs a host, and her father's been the host for a very, very long time. So I do think that Khalid and Tracy and Zatanna should work well enough as hosts, considering Zatanna was able to hold Nabu's power for a little bit when she was 14, and she's 24 now, so that should work out fine. On top of that, we also get more of an exploration of Garfield's depression when his girlfriend from Season 3 comes to visit, and it's clear he's not getting any better. He is in desperate need of an intervention that even the girlfriend from Season 3 understands. So, if he's not going to help himself, and if he's not going to let anyone help him, then I'm guessing the outsiders are just going to have to work together to get him to a doctor or something. Speaking of doctors, Dinah Lance, as a counselor, is probably have a field day with the kids when it comes to, how the kids in the bus, given how they have handled this battle between chaos and order. I know that Dinah isn't a doctor, she's a counselor, but I still think of psychiatrists as doctors. But yeah, anyways, Young Justice Season 4 has been pretty all over the place, but this episode was pretty good, and I do think it sets up some interesting plot points that could go into the next part of the season, especially considering that Connor's spirit is apparently still out there. If his spirit's still out there, does that mean they'll retcon his death? I have no idea. But if they retcon his death, they could theoretically retcon Kid Flash's death, and I really hope they don't do that, considering that was one of the emotional high points of Season 2. But for now, we'll have to wait as Studio Mirror is given a little bit of time before the second part. Hopefully they use that to improve the animation outside of the action scenes. For now, I'll see you next time, and maybe I'll check out that Peacemaker series when it comes out in 2022.